Hello again, everyone. I hope you're all keeping well. So, Tommy Robinson is now free on bail, pending another trial, of course, regarding his original conviction and also the sentence that he was given. He won the appeal for that thus far, but it is all subject to what happens in future. However, this is good news for him. It's good news for his family. There are troubling issues around how he was treated inside prison, and a great many people still have very serious concerns, I think, about the state of the country, the state of the political process, the state of the judiciary itself, and the direction in which they are taking the UK. These are all serious matters, to be sure, and I find them quite distressing in terms of what they mean for speech inside the United Kingdom. Because this is not an isolated case, you see. These things have happened before to a number of people. These sort of convictions for being, as they term it, grossly offensive under the Communications Act and what have you. I think the thing about all of this that is really troubling is that you've got people like Alison Shablaws and people like Mark Meechan who were convicted. He's better known, of course, as Count Dankula, his pseudonym. People being convicted for nonsensical things, right? Who determines what is grossly offensive? I mean, this is a very serious question. How do you determine that something is grossly offensive? And even if it is grossly offensive, it still should have some sort of legal framework that protects it. And a lot of people won't understand this. You see, it's never acceptable speech that needs to be protected. It's always unacceptable speech. And time again, when we've seen totalitarian dictatorships and other forms of government that are authoritarian take power, what tends to happen is that it's the unacceptable speech that becomes outlawed that was the only thing standing in the way of that totalitarian system coming in. And this is how you know that your freedoms are actually being restricted. It doesn't matter whether you agree with whatever someone else says. If someone is expressing an opinion, okay, of any kind, be it, in the case of Alison Shablaws, it was rather anti-Semitic according to several people, but then what is anti-Semitism? You see, now this is a very big question because the Labour Party itself is embroiled in this whole controversy right now. So how do we determine what is anti-Semitic? How do we determine what is this nonsense term Islamophobic, right? Well, what is all of this? Now, you know, this is where it gets really, really dicey because there are now things that you can be convicted for, you can be given a prison sentence for merely saying the wrong thing. Okay? It's a case of prosecuting wrongthink. Now, I would urge people to consider the following as being important, right? I might find something that, let's say in the case of Alison Shablaws, I might find that to be offensive. But does that mean then that I would want her to be censored? If I was to say, personally speaking from a subjective standpoint, I find that to be anti-Semitic, does that then mean that she should be censored and silenced and convicted for expressing that opinion? Okay, this is the question. And no, I don't think that should be the case. Because how else are we going to debate ideas, even bad ideas? How else are we going to be able to do this if we cannot speak openly and honestly and freely? Okay, you can't convince somebody about the folly of their ways by punishing them. That never works. Now, this is the case with children, it's the case with adults. It doesn't matter which way you cut it. And here's the proof in the pudding, right? The number of cases criminally, and this is deviating slightly from the central topic here, but the number of cases where people are prosecuted for criminal behaviour that is of a violent nature that end up re-offending is immense. Okay? So this notion that we can just put people into prisons and that will change their behaviour obviously does not work. Okay? If you really want to understand people inside your society, if they've been socialized wrongly, then speak to them. Show them there's a better way. Okay? Don't be that person that goes out there calling for a more totalitarian approach that ultimately ends up taking your own freedoms away. Okay? It limits what you can say. Because, see, there's idiots out there. And I've said this before, but I don't really want to repeat myself, but I think I have to. There's idiots out there that are calling for everything to be silenced and censored and shut down, and then they applaud when that happens. What they don't realise is, when one citizen's free speech is curtailed, it's only a matter of time before yours is. What if the next government that comes in is so totalitarian and so brutal, right, which can happen and could happen, and it's actually very likely to happen with this uni-party system that's developing both in the UK and in the US at the moment. Eventually there's going to be some sort of totalitarian control system coming in. Okay? Now, those statutes and laws that are on the books can then be used to silence those people that are trying to oppose tyranny. Do you see what I'm saying? And then everyone will be crying for someone to say something or to speak out about something. At that point, it will be too late. This is why you should never champion, never ever should you be championing, if you have a conscience, okay? If you are conscious spiritually, if you are conscious politically, it doesn't matter which side of the political arena you fit into, whether it's this created left or right paradigm, it doesn't matter to me, okay? What matters is the moment one person is targeted in these ways, and several people already have been, the moment that happens, then it's just a matter of time before they come after you. Okay, now, I think it was Martin Niemöller who made that point during the Second World War. First they came for. I'm sure you've heard this poem before, right? This is the thing. So, this is why I think people in the current time need to be a little bit more sensible with regards to how they perceive what is happening, and not just jump onto a bandwagon of applauding authoritarian behavior by any government. I don't care which side of what government it is, okay? That is not something that you should be doing if you are a thinking, sane, rational person. Okay? Because if governments can abuse their powers, if courts, right, if the whole of the court system can abuse its power in these ways, then what of you? What will happen to you? Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but a few years down the line, what could happen? That's the question not enough people are asking in the UK today. Okay? You can have disagreements of all kinds, of any nature, be it on the topic of religion, gender, anything at all, politics, right? Ethics, no matter what it is. You can have vigorous debates about it. You can disagree with other citizens about that. Okay, but you see, your citizenship, though it is a right, also comes with a responsibility to that society in which you exist in. Okay, which you are a part of. Those freedoms come with responsibilities. Those rights come with responsibilities. And one of those responsibilities is to speak up when the whole of your society is going down dangerous and wrong paths. When you see friends going down paths that are probably not going to result in anything good for them in the long term, it is your responsibility, it's your duty to do so, to speak up and say, hold on a second, this isn't right. Okay? And some things, strangely enough, I know that the moral relativists like to argue that everything is relative ultimately when it comes to ethics and morals. This is not the case. Sometimes there is no good argument to be made as to why something may be moral when it is in fact, by all measurable accounts, immoral. Okay? This is the thing. So folks need to get this. You see, This targeting of Tommy Robinson that has happened, people have their criticisms of Tommy, I understand that. Everyone has the right to be critical of anyone, I think, for the most part, right? Unless it's an undue criticism, or if it's just abusive, or if it's an incitement to violence against a particular person, right? Or I suppose you could even take it to an extreme and do that with groups, but then again, part of that breaks down because it's about how objective is that? Is that then a subjective judgment call? These are very complex issues, but what's wrong certainly is to make them devoid of nuance. Okay? To make these arguments devoid of nuance and just make an arbitrary ruling just in order to save face politically. And that's what the establishment currently is doing. So, are we on the right path in the UK? I don't think so. I think we're heading down very, very dangerous roads that ultimately do lead solely to tyranny. So if we want to avert that as people, we have to be aware of the more complex arguments. And again, what's happening is that these basic ideas aren't being put to people. Like, why did these laws exist? I guess they don't really any longer in the UK, but why did these laws exist as were set down in the Magna Carta, let's say? Okay, or the British Constitution. There is such a thing as the British Constitution. The deconstructionists have very interestingly argued that this is not the case, just because we don't have a single document or several documents that say this is the Constitution. But the laws on the statute books, right? Sorry, the statutes and the laws on the law books, right? They do stipulate what is part of the British Constitution and what is not. And not enough people realise that we do in fact have one. Right? It's just what's happening right now is a lot of our MPs, the members of Parliament, don't actually know that themselves. And quite often what happens with politicos and people that are in the Houses of Parliament and so on is that they don't actually read a piece of legislation that's put forward, that's proposed in a bill. And they'll pass it anyway into law without realising what the heck they're doing. What are the implications of that thing? Right? Now, they're pretty stringent about it when it comes to the issue of Article 50 and Brexit and this and that and whatever else, right? Which is tangential in a great many ways. The real issues are not being dealt with at all. Everybody's vision is being sidetracked right now. Everyone's vision is being sidetracked with this political theatre. We're not even really, if I'm honest about it, we're not really having a dialogue in this country about Brexit either. It's fascinating stuff to see if you're looking at it from a distance perspective, which I try to do, It's nuts what's going on. So, I'm sure I'll have more to say about this at some point again, but whilst this is a good thing that Tommy's out of prison, I also think we still need to keep an eye on the general direction of things. Okay? Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, but thank you very much for watching. Take good care of yourselves, and God bless everyone.